We kick off the story with a kid named Lloyd being mercilessly kicked out of his group of adventurers. And it's like this, my dudes, you might be wondering how we got here. So, to explain that, let's go back in time. And there, we see little Lloyd, jaw dropped, while a woman conjures fire in the palm of her hand. She tells him to do the same, or else he'll go without dinner. And with that, the young man tries his best to meet her expectations until sometime later, he comes back to the same woman, mentioning that constant dripping wears away a stone. In other words, he managed to conjure fire in his hand. And when he actually manages to produce flames, his tutor offers a rare compliment. But before he can enjoy the moment, she puts out his fire and sends a spell dozens of times stronger, smoking the poor dude out. According to her, he still has a long way to go. What a caring teacher. The next day, Lloyd stomps the ground hard, trying to make a new technique work. When nothing happens, his instructor decides to show him how it's done and rubs her foot, making water appear. Then, the persistent Lloyd copies her and manages to dampen the dirt too. However, as soon as he's praised again, Miss Faith in the Crazy Ones immediately bombards the guy with water, showing him how real magic works. On another day, the little guy almost bursts a vein and his underwear trying to manipulate the wind. And the teacher? Well, she sends him flying with a single breath. Is it over? Calm down, there's more. Because when snow covers the land, Lloyd decides it's time to practice with this new element, and in a proud and innocent way, he shows his master a snowman he made that looks just like her. And not one to break tradition, she uses the very same snowman to grab him and drop him from a considerable height, after magically making the snowman enormous. After digging himself out from under the pile of snow, Lloyd realizes he needs more power and vows to work even harder. Then there's the day his master is way past tipsy, after a few too many bottles. Nursing a monstrous hangover, she hears her apprentice ask if she's okay. She admits she's not at all. Lloyd, undeterred, places a hand on her forehead and prepares a healing spell. Feeling a bit better, the woman admits the boy's gotten pretty good at healing and gives him a rare, affectionate hug, at which our little protag is proud to have helped her. But there's no time to celebrate, she's already recovered and ready to get back to magic training. With that, the days fly by, and the young mage's training never lets up. On a certain night, the teacher seems troubled as she stares at a book in a box, and our protag then comes by and says dinner is ready, and the woman accidentally drops the book. Lloyd picks it up to hand it back, but as he does, he's struck by a magical reaction that almost fries the kid's processor. Realizing what happened, his master sees that he has the potential to become a chosen one too, so if that's his destiny, she swears she won't let him make the same mistakes she did by becoming overconfident with his skills. At that, she kisses the boy's forehead, leaving a blue mark behind. The scene changes, and the next day the instructor explains that a white mage is someone who uses magic for the benefit of others. And while she's talking, Lloyd regenerates a piece of fruit and earns a compliment, but his master immediately goes further, regenerating the whole tree and bringing it back to life with her healing magic. And this demonstration makes our protag express that his master is incredible. That night, she tells Lloyd that, according to what she's heard, some beastmen can use rare magic to control monsters. And Lloyd's curiosity is piqued by a mention of ancient magic in the book on the table, but the teacher's expression darkens, and she says he doesn't need to learn that it's just a type of magic that's been extinct for centuries. The next day, Lloyd conjures a staff, but his teacher thinks he's way too slow, then conjuring her own scepter and tripping the poor boy, making him fall. She explains that he needs to speed up and reminds him that, as inexperienced as he is, he must never get complacent with his training. Later, the two sit at the table to continue studying, and while he reads about the Magistone, his teacher explains that it's a crystallization of mana powerful enough to turn nearby things into other Magistones. And then the scene changes, and a few more days have passed. They went to a certain forest, and after arriving, the master takes off Lloyd's blindfold. With a wild beast lurking, the woman hands a knife to her apprentice and gives him the lowdown. His mission is to get home in a week. Basically, a fantasy version of Naked and Afraid, using only magic to survive. The moment she leaves him, Lloyd is attacked by a giant wolf. He runs, not caring if he looks like a coward. After escaping up a tree, he realizes he can't yet defeat monsters with a white mage's spells, so all he can do is keep running until he's strong enough to fight back. Looking around, he sees just how far from home he really is. At night, he regenerates a fruit to eat and hides in a cave. Drawing a magic circle on the ground, the young mage plans to tweak the design to channel more power and improve his skills. With the sunrise comes more hardship, as he has to cross a mountain, and this won't be an easy task. Night after night, he practices his magic circle, and also works on improving his detection magic, or else he could end up starving. And by combining two circles, he hopes to boost his running speed. One morning during his adventure, Lloyd accidentally steps on a branch and draws the attention of a hideous spider. And once again he bolts. And it's at this moment that he tests his newly improved speed circle, which actually works, allowing him to escape unharmed. Running flat out, Lloyd finally makes it back home but passes out before he can even knock on the door. His master soon finds him and welcomes her apprentice back. Then a few more days passed, and while tidying up a room, Lloyd, now with a noticeably more mature voice, stumbled upon a book that caught his eye. The cover was a painting of a city, and at that moment his master appeared, telling him to get back to cleaning, but he still asked to borrow the book. The next day, while Lloyd was sweeping, his master called him to help with a spell that could stop the aging process. At another time, she interrupted him while he was hanging laundry, asking for help with a healing spell. And while they were grubbing, the mage revealed she'd thought up a new enhancement magic. In other words, more work on the horizon. That night, when our protag was already begging for a break from exhaustion, his master mentioned she cast a spell on him so he wouldn't sleep for a week. That way, he wouldn't need to rest and could keep working, then offering him another potion to recover his vitality. And I confess, I'd love to have one of those so I wouldn't have to sleep and could pump out more videos for you guys. And after a long struggle, the moment of glory arrives, where he finally managed to get a moment to look at the book. The scene changes, and the next morning his master went to wake her student for more experiments, but his room was empty. She saw the book with the city on the cover and realized the connection. Meanwhile, he was on his way through the forest, heading straight for the city he saw on that book's cover. And once inside the walls, the mage wandered the plaza, dumbfounded, as he'd never seen so many people together. A man carrying boxes rushed past and cursed at Lloyd for being in the way, but all Lloyd could think was how amazing cities seemed. He traded his last coin for a loaf of bread, but just as he was about to eat, a gust of wind slapped a piece of paper against his face, while the person responsible vanished as soon as he saw his plan succeed, leaving Lloyd to read a flyer about adventurer recruitment. Some time later, far from there, inside a shadowy dungeon, a group of warriors fought a cyclops, and our protagonist was among them, jaw dropped at the intensity of the brawl. The team's leader shouted for Sheena to cast a healing spell, while Lloyd slammed his staff to the ground and summoned a magic circle that spread across the whole battlefield. And with that, the whole team is now buffed and ready to finish the beast off. First, the archer fires an arrow straight into the monster's eye. The Cyclops retaliates with a punch, but the team's tank steps in, blocking the blow, surprised at how much lighter the impact felt. At this, the sorceress casts a binding spell, wrapping the monster's arms and legs, giving their leader the perfect chance to finish the job with a powerful sword strike. And after their victory, the tank stared intently at Lloyd. When the group returned to the city, the whole team was greeted with cheers for defeating the Cyclops, but Alan, the hero, was by far the most celebrated. Later, when it came time to split the mission rewards, Lloyd received a much smaller share than the others. At that moment, Alan explained that this was what a D-rank member got, and the mage didn't complain. And well, with that settled, the leader called for a toast, but Lloyd made it clear he wasn't much of a drinker and wandered away. The team's which grumbles about his attitude, while Alan comments that any white mage could have done Lloyd's job. After all, white mages are useless in battle and are just there for show. Nothing like the classic prejudice against the support class, a real shame. But even with these words worthy of a total doofus, the tank is still silent, observing our protagonist. Meanwhile, back at Lloyd's master's house, she was visited by a man named Will, the guy who threw the flyer at our protag, bringing the news that her apprentice had been recruited by the heroes. She was happy and says she owes him one now, since this way the boy would get real training, but she's still worried he might become overconfident. Will asked if her regrets still haunted her, making her uncomfortable, but she promised herself she wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. Then Will recalled how, back then, the demon lord sacrificed himself trying to steal that grimoire, taking many others down with him. And at a crucial moment, Sybil's ancient magic brought everyone the demon lord killed back to life at the cost of her own. And dudes, either I'm crazy or the plot twist just hit hard, because at this moment the scene really suggested that this Sybil is actually our protagonist, who got younger and lost his memories. Damn, did anyone else get that, or is it just the narrator's excitement? Anyway, the scene changes, and at dawn, back in the city, a vendor was promoting a book about Alan's group's adventures. According to him, long ago in ancient times, this world was created by the creator, and legends said that the trials of the heroes were left behind, the national treasures of the sacred nation, the sacred swords, and one of the 4 heroes chosen by these swords was Alan. That's why all the monsters threatening the city had been defeated, and now, Alan's name echoed throughout the entire kingdom. Speaking of the city's great celebrity, Alan stumbled drunkenly into a room where the team's tank was reading a book. Worried because lately the blows to her shield had felt odd, Alan, unconcerned, said he felt stronger than ever. The girl pointed out that he hadn't been training much lately, and Alan just shrugged, figuring there was no need, since he was naturally much stronger than anyone else. Meanwhile, by a stream, 2 soldiers stood guard until they were slaughtered by a giant creature. The next day, Alan was informed that the border guards had been killed. The messenger explained that the area was also a route for smugglers, so it was urgent to protect the soldiers assigned there. And full of bravado, Alan insisted that taking down a few golems would be a piece of cake. Eager for action, he rallied his team and followed Lloyd, who used his search magic to guide them to a cave where Alan finished off a golem with a decisive strike. But then, an enemy sorcerer summoned a new golem, and Lloyd quickly noticed the sorcerer was a demon, as the black stone on his staff was a magistone. The tank assumes the mage is using that stone to control the golems, while Lloyd casts a magic circle to strengthen his allies. As soon as he's done, he tells the archer to shoot the mage. After that, the white mage orders the witch to hand over her staff, and as soon as she does, the enemy mage seals the scepter. Furious, Alan makes it clear who's really in charge, saying he's eager to end the fight. But Lloyd warns him that without the magistone controlling the golem, the creature's movements become completely unpredictable, making any battle extremely dangerous. Alan ignores the warning and charges straight at the giant, forcing Lloyd to rush over and push the leader out of harm's way just in time. Annoyed, Alan yells at the kid to get out of his way, and then delivers a sword strike that brings the stone creature crashing down. With the mission over, we return to the opening scene, where the party leader decides to kick Lloyd out, accusing Lloyd of always hiding behind the others and leaving all the healing to Sheena. In other words, Lloyd isn't just useless, he's also a burden to the team. And I'm just thinking that I can't wait to see this bastard's face when he realizes he's a total nobody without our protagonist by his side. Hanging his head, the outcast admits he still lacks strength, to which Alan just laughs and tells the white mage to get lost. 3 days later, Lloyd is searching for a new group. After another failed attempt, an archer tells him they already have a white mage on their team. With each rejection, Lloyd's frustration only grows, and his luck seems to have run out. Then, suddenly, he hears a girl shouting at the guild receptionist, demanding a white mage now. The moment the staff member points to Lloyd, the adventurer runs toward him as if she's just found a treasure chest and grabs him by the arm. And with our protag being basically kidnapped, the scene changes and we see our boy Lloyd wandering through the city, beating himself up for getting kicked out of his party by Alan. We get a kind of flashback where he remembers the guy's accusations, calling him a useless white mage, a dead weight who just hides behind the team and is good for almost nothing. The only thing he knows how to do is heal, but even Sheena, another party member, could do a better job. Lloyd, poor guy, still tries to argue, asking if Alan really thinks he lacks skill. The leader, a real jerk, doesn't even bother to answer, just tells him to think whatever he wants and get lost. But as he walks away, we notice that Sheena wasn't really on board with this. probably because she'd noticed that he had skills. She realized the group had changed and weird things started happening after Lloyd joined, like how the hits she was tanking suddenly felt a lot weaker. Anyway, Lloyd heads to the center of town and comes face to face with a statue that looks just like his master, which only makes him miss her even more. The scene then shifts, and now we're following what's probably our protagonist's new group, because that crazy pink-haired girl is there. We see they're getting ready to raid a bandit territory. The mission is A rank, so this is serious business. However, we see the redhead of the team is visibly upset about something, but she's not saying a word. With that, they launch their attack, catching the bandits completely by surprise. The mage of the team starts chanting a spell, and one of the bandits spots the opening, telling his buddies to attack only after she's finished. They charge forward, shielding themselves, and when she gets tired from chanting, they move in for the kill. But the party's archer is providing cover from a distance, and with a single shot, he puts the enemies on the floor. These guys' team seems pretty balanced. Even the swordswoman and leader of the group can handle herself just fine. And even when problems pop up, the team's tank protects her with his shield. The mage then uses her magic to give the tank a strength buff, and with that extra juice, he plows through the bandits, securing the win. The bandit boss panics, looking for an escape route, but before he can do anything, the pink-haired girl finds him and tells him to surrender without a fight. The boss, acting all tough, demands to know who she is and why they were attacked out of nowhere. That's when he notices the gold pendant on her neck, an emblem that means she's an S-rank adventurer. The bandit boss still doesn't give up. He's got one last card up his sleeve. He believes that even if they're all S-rank, they won't be able to beat what he's about to summon. Using his staff, he activates a summoning spell, and a giant golem rises from the ground. With that, the swordswoman, whose name is Yui, charges in first and brings her sword down on the golem with all her might, but the thing barely even gets a scratch. The redhead, whose name is Clum and who's been spacing out from the beginning, zones out again and doesn't hear Yui telling her to buff her strength. Yui literally has to scream to get her attention. When she finally snaps out of it, she casts the physical enhancement spell. With the buff, Yui's power increases like 5-fold, and she slices the golem in half with a single strike. They capture all the bandits, and Yui goes to talk to Clum about what happened. The redhead apologizes for being distracted and says she's no longer worthy of being called an adventurer. Yui understands Clum's situation, as apparently her worries are because of her sister, Sylvie. Yui asks how Sylvie is doing, but before Clum can answer, the scene cuts back to Lloyd, right at the moment he was being rejected by an archer and then got recruited by Yui. She was so hell-bent on finding a white mage that she didn't even bother to ask his rank and just started dragging the poor guy by the hand to her party's base. She introduces Lloyd to the team and officially welcomes him, even though he hasn't even agreed to join yet. Yui's comrades realize right away that she brought the guy here without explaining anything, which is totally her style. The archer, whose name is Cross, explains that they're in a hurry because they have an urgent quest, and without Clum, they can't do it. Nobody there thinks Lloyd is a good replacement, and Lloyd himself doesn't have the guts to prove otherwise, especially after finding out they're an S-rank party. And although he's already given up on himself, Yui hasn't, and she forces him to show his magic. Lloyd thinks he's just going to let them down, but he gives it a shot anyway. He summons a staff using storage magic, which is enough to make them realize maybe this guy is actually good. And then, without even chanting a single word, he buffs everyone's strength. Nobody feels the upgrade at first, but Yui decides to test it. With a simple flick of her sword, she cuts through a tree like it's butter, leaving everyone with their jaws on the floor. Lloyd explains that he didn't just use physical enhancement. He also layered several other spells that massively boosted Yui's power. Well, that seals the deal. The reality is, Clum isn't even close to Lloyd's level, but Lloyd himself seems to have no clue just how overpowered he really is. He explains that he used 5 different spells because he assumed that if he only used one for a team of skilled adventurers like them, it would be mediocre and they wouldn't like it. He just wanted to impress them. However, seeing their stunned faces, he thinks he messed up, that what he did was mediocre. The thing about being constantly put down is that it destroys your self-esteem, and our heroes, it seems, is in the basement. He assumes he didn't impress them and says he doesn't want to be a dead weight, so he turns to leave. But the party is so shocked by what they saw, they can't even speak. However, Yui quickly snaps out of it and screams at the top of her lungs for him to come back. He returns, at least to hear what they have to say, and tells them where he came from and how the heroes' party kicked him out for being useless. Yui is shocked that he even worked for the heroes' party, but he tells them not to be impressed, because he isn't that good. Man, that kid's self-esteem is in hell, guys. He advises them to go back to their old white mage because it's better for them. That's when they tell him the story about Clum. She's good and worked with them, but her sister, Sylvie, was sick. She used to be able to adventure and take care of her, but lately she was just too tired, and it was affecting her work. In the last fight, she got distracted and almost got the whole team wiped. And even though they were fine with her staying, she got so worried that she decided to quit. Normally, they can get by without a white mage, but for A-rank missions, it's mandatory. And besides being a great addition to the team, they saw her as a good friend. Lloyd sees they're genuinely worried and thinks about how lucky she is to have such loyal teammates, compared to the ones he had. He asks about Sylvie's illness and finds out she's turning into a magic stone. He remembers reading a book about it with his master and asked if the condition was reversible. She said yes. Seeing that he could help, he asks Yui to take him to Clum's house. When they get there, she opens the door and they start talking. She reveals that she and her sister were adventurers and one day, Sylvie got injured on a mission. Lloyd asks about the nature of the illness, and Clum takes them to Sylvie's room. When she opens the door, Lloyd feels an immense magical power coming from the room. Clum removes the blanket, revealing that Sylvie's legs and hands are already stone. She says that eventually her whole body will be like that. Lloyd says he thinks he can heal her, but Clum obviously doesn't believe him, since several advanced mages had already tried and failed. However, Lloyd asks if the injury happened in a cave, and Clum, shocked, says yes. He checks where the injury started and confirms that an invading magic power is causing the symptoms. Clum still has her doubts, but he says his master told him it could work. Yui also tells Clum to trust Lloyd, so she decides to let him give it a try. He summons his staff and casts a powerful spell that leaves him feeling weak. He explains that the spell will reverse the magic power overflowing in Sylvie's body. Afterwards, he immediately casts a healing spell. Clum, in awe, says that the healing power he's using isn't just any regular spell. He admits it's a different kind and consumes more magic power, but insists it's just an ordinary healing spell. Yui asks Clum what she thinks, and she can't help but admit that the magic is anything but ordinary. It's incredible that Lloyd is casting two different spells at the same time and still has the strength to sustain them both. Yui points out that Sylvie's body is returning to normal. Clum holds her sister's hand as she completely recovers. Everyone witnessing this genuine miracle is shocked and happy. Clum is beyond grateful but reveals she can't return to the team because once her sister recovers, they'll go on adventures together. She offers to buy them around later as thanks and says she's sure the team is in good hands with Lloyd. He replies that he isn't a team member yet, and she's shocked that he still doubts himself. The scene changes and the party is out to dinner. Yui is telling the others about the crazy thing Lloyd did, but no matter how much she praises him, he still thinks he's not good enough. She tells him to stop being so modest. He apologizes to the team for not being able to get Clum to come back, but that's not their worry right now. They want to celebrate. As they talk about the future, Lloyd thinks about the heroes' party and how they made him feel compared to how he feels now. He asks if he can join them. They're shocked, since he had rejected them earlier, but they reveal they also want to work with him. And just like that, he officially joins the party. I am so excited for this new team. And with that turnaround, where our hero finally found a place to call his own, the episode ends. So, what did you guys think of this journey? Want to see how this new team will work together? Then let me know in the comments that you want the next part, smash that like and hype button to support the video, and subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss a thing.